Hello, and welcome to this episode of Widowhood Real Talk with Tina. Our conversation today is with my friend Jennifer Pilant, and she really took me back to some places that I forgot and didn't even realize. I appreciate Jennifer being able to come to this conversation and share her heart. She has some really good nuggets. She would call herself one of my quiet friends, but once I got her to talk, you could really see the richness and the wealth that she brings to our relationship. Let's get into the conversation.
Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests. This is Widowhood Real Talk the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, and welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina. Today, my guest, all the way from the other side of the world, is my girlfriend, Jennifer Pilant. Hey, Jennifer.
Tina, from across the pond.
So where are you at right now, to be exact?
I'm in a city called Wiesbaden. Starts with a W, but they pronounce it like a V. So
Thank you.
Wiesbaden, Germany.
Okay.
And I work at Wiesbaden Army Post. It's called Clay Kasern,
Okay.
but for the Department of the Army.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Share with our podcast guests and friends that are here. Who is Jennifer Pilant?
Jennifer Pilant is a supervisor of IT specialists.
Okay.
I work here, like I said, for Department of the Army and for NECOM Europe is what we're called. I'm here in Wiesbaden, not quite a year yet, with my son Connor, who came over with me. My husband is still in the States, but we're hoping he joins us soon with a job. Let's see. Before that, I worked for Tobyhanna Army Depot, which in 2012 is where I met Tina. We actually both started working together on the same day in October of 2012. I can't remember the exact date anymore, but I had the privilege of actually going through
New employee orientation.
Yes. She was my battle buddy during that.
We sat literally next to each other. Yeah.
We have a funny story there, but we can tell that later, maybe.
Yep. I was hoping you would.
Yeah. And then I've been married to my husband, Paul, for going on 29 years.
Wow.
On Valentine's Day, this will be 29 years for us.
Yeah.
That's our anniversary, Valentine's Day. I know it's cheesy, but
I know when you told me that, I was like, okay, well, that means like double gifts, right? I mean, that doesn't mean like you get cheated. Like it's like Valentine's and anniversary.
He got away with only giving one gift for anniversary and Valentine's into one.
You got to go big. So how did you and Paul meet?
So we worked. I took a hiatus from college, and so did he. We both had done 2 years. He did school in San Jose in California. I was at Rutgers for 2 years, and then we kind of took a financial break from school as we were paying for it ourselves.
Right.
And started working. I had a summer job at 9 West Distribution Center in New Jersey. He had come back with his dad who had retired and his parents that retired from the Air Force at that point, and they settled back in New Jersey too. We both started working there. And that's how we dated for like before we got married.
Okay. So you talked about Paul's parents being in the Air Force. How does that impact anything that happened in your life with you and Paul as far as military career or served in the military?
Definitely impacted it. As I said, financially, we couldn't afford to support ourselves through college and work full time and all that. So we, at that point, neither one of us had really considered Air Force. So we sat down and started talking to his dad about, what he did when he was in the Air Force and the benefits of,
Okay.
getting tuition paid for and seeing the world and getting out of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Both were and not very happy. So we went to talk, and so from his experiences and guidance, I was like, oh, not just Paul joining the Air Force, but myself also.
Okay.
It sounded like it was a good deal for both of us, and it sounded exciting to me as I grew up in a pretty disciplined household. So,
Okay.
in like, thinking about basic training and all that's involved, and he told us all of that, seemed as scary as maybe some other people. So we both kind of decided, okay, well, if we're going to do this, let's get married first. So
Okay.
we did that. We got married on Valentine's Day in 1994. And then 2 weeks later, after our honeymoon, I got shipped off to basic training.
Wow,
So
that quickly. Okay.
they called me. They said, hey, we got an earlier spot than what Falls was. We had an opening. So I was like, yeah, I could do this. Shipped off to basic training, and then probably a month and a half later, Paul got shipped to basic training.
So what was basic training like in the Air Force? Because we know I was in the Army, so I'm just kind of curious, what does that look like? I want to know. So like the first day, do you remember like getting there, like the initial part, the shocker, or what do you recall from boot camp?
Basically the time getting off the bus and
Okay.
getting that and yelled at and, told what to do and where to stand and blah, blah, blah. From that time on, I think it was probably just a shock to the system, but
Okay.
not a terrible thing. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's like a day of being shocked. And then at that point, it was like, okay, all I have to do is follow the rules, right? Like, just
Okay.
what they tell me to do. And basically, I already knew from Paul's dad, like,
Okay.
the biggest thing I always kind of joke about is, yeah, you have to do what they say and follow orders and be smart enough to learn what you're supposed to learn and the way you're supposed to learn it.
Okay.
And they can yell at you all the way up to the, in your face, yelling and
Like
at you,
spitting, yelling, like it's like they're there. Yes.
literally screaming and spitting in your face. But guess what they can't do? At least they can't do in the Air Force is they can't hit you.
Okay.
So for all the time, growing up and you're getting disciplined and,
Right.
the kind of discipline I went through, it was like, oh, I can handle this.
This is light work. This is cake.
Kind of my thing. And I guess that realization, like, okay, realizing what they were doing and why they were doing it too.
Okay.
And they bring you down so they can build you back up to be what they need you to be.
Okay.
And after that realization, it was like, okay. And so the schoolwork part of it, the learning part of it, I excelled in so that I helped others.
Oh, wow.
I was 24, which is kind of old to go through basic training.
Oh.
And I kind of became the big sister to all the girls. There was 25 girls in the flight. So that was nice because I had two sisters growing up. It was like, okay, I was braiding people's hair at 4 o'clock in the morning so we could get ready and helping people make their beds and making sure their uniform looked okay. And
right.
And with the studies, I became the academic, leader or whatever it was because I could help people, get learning because a lot of them were like 17 or 18.
I was going to ask you what was the average age since you said you were like the grandma. So it was really like the teenagers still and okay, wow.
Some of them had to be, had to have that signature from their parents to get in because they were only 17 or whatever. So, but it was interesting. It wasn't as long. I think the Air Force is much shorter basic training than yours. I mean, it still sucks because it was San Antonio and it was hot. And Texas weather is, hot and humid and
right.
But then I went to Biloxi, Keesler Air Force Base for tech school.
Okay.
That was even more hot and humid.
Wow.
Yeah. But I wasn't there much longer than like 6 weeks also. And then I
Okay.
got my duty station, which was Germany, Spangdahlem.
Wow. So what did you do in
Spangdahlem.
the Air Force? What did you do in the Air Force? You said T
I was
school. What is, so you mentioned the word T school. What is for people joining us, what is T school? What does that mean?
so
And what's
technical
done there?
school.
Okay.
Yeah, so after basic training that everybody goes through that experience the same way, basically, enlisted, because I was enlisted, not an officer.
Okay.
So, because I had only 2 years of school, not 4. So we went through enlisted basic training, and then they give you orders to go to your technical school because
Okay.
they give you a job, which in the military is called an MOS. I don't even know, military.
Occupational skill, I'm guessing, but I'll have to find that out for sure. I'm guessing.
Just saying,
But MOS, I've said that for years. I don't know if I've ever looked that up. Okay. I have my phone off, so I'm not going to turn it on. Okay. We're going to
right,
see
yeah.
for now. That's what it is.
But your job, your position is chosen in either one of the 4 categories that the military offers positions, depending on if you're a Marine or, Navy, or you still take what's called an ASFAB, and it's your armed forces, blah, 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 specialty. So they group them in like general, administrative,
Okay.
electronic, I forget the 4th one. And then like I scored really high in administrative, and some of those job categories are like personnel specialists, which
Okay.
is what so
Oh,
it's like human resources specialist. It's all your
okay.
person. So ultimately, after my technical school to learn what the regulations are and different things for being a personnel specialist, then they send you to your base. Like,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that I was personnel specialist, and then my first duty station was Spangdahlem Air Force Base in Germany, where I worked in the security forces, what was called an orderly room.
Oh,
So they had
yes.
personnel specialists and other administrative type
Mm-hmm.
positions, orderly room for the squadron that was security forces. So that was fun. I was here for like 3 years, and Paul got the same duty station
Oh, okay.
later. So his technical school was in a different place, and because he chose to work on the flight line,
Okay.
his technical school, instead of being only 6 weeks like mine, was 6 months.
Oh,
So I got, like here now, I got to Germany before he did. And it took him another 6 months to get to Germany.
wow. So
But
back again, huh?
I know, but 20 some years later,
But in a
yeah,
different capacity. So you were there as military. Now you're here as a civilian.
yes. And I do think that being in the military, active duty, they absolutely take better care of you overseas
Oh,
than
really?
they,
Okay.
as a civilian. I found out like, oh, I had to do 80% of the arrangements that the military took care of the active duty people to themselves.
That makes
Like I had to
sense.
do it myself. They took care of them. But
Okay.
I absolutely respect the fact that I've been on both sides now.
Nice.
So I could see it from both sides. I could see why they take care of the military, because it is,
Hmm.
for the most part, a much younger group of people coming over in the
Okay.
military, young kids, little kids. And it's kind of scary to come here
Mm,
from the States where people speak English. Your
right.
doctor's road, and you're not coming into a foreign country where they don't. I mean, they speak pretty good
Right.
English here, but not 100%.
Well, why should they? It's not their primary language. So I've heard people that travel, it serves them well to try to learn the host language. And people that do speak English will be more apt because of the respect that you've given them outside of the country. They'll lean in and help you more. And I think it's really important, like you said, to have the opportunity to travel and to see the world. There's so much. I mean, obviously, you guys love that, to come back to a place you were there as a military and to come there again to enjoy that culture, to broaden Connor's horizons and family and friends that are coming to visit. We're planning to come soon. trying to be there myself. Next year I want to come and visit. So that's my goal. So maybe we'll have a podcast episode there from Germany while I'm there. So
Yeah.
so you mentioned about having 2 years of college when you went. Did you could pursue your education further?
Yes, so when I was at Spangdahlem, working for the security forces, I wasn't a cop, but I worked for the cops. So they were
Okay.
very understanding about education too. The Air Force
Hmm.
in general was. So within the 3 years that I was there, I finished my bachelor's degree.
Okay.
When we left, unfortunately, because unfortunately for Paul, he wasn't able to finish. He took a couple classes, but because he chose a flight line job, they
Oh,
kept busy.
right.
They going deploying places
Okay.
during that time frame. So he only maybe finished one or two classes while we were over here, but I was able to finish my entire bachelor's
Okay.
and got reassigned to McCord Air Force Base in Washington, where I did one more year in the Air Force before I separated from
Okay.
the Air after 5 years total, I think it was. And then
Good.
Paul continued to re-enlisted. Unfortunately, right about that time, we loved it at McCord Air Force Base, but I got a job in the financial industry over there in Washington State, and I loved the job. Shortly after, probably 2 years into that job, the financial industry was not doing well.
Okay.
As a whole, it was kind of a small family-owned business,
Mm.
and they shuttered their doors when I was 7 months pregnant.
Oh,
With
wow.
Con-
Wow.
So that was a shock. And right about that time, Paul re-enlisted,
Okay.
and they immediately got orders to South Dakota.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Sometimes it's a gamble when you re-enlist with the military.
Yes, it
They
is.
often say, I don't care if you've only been here for 2 years and you have a really good job, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
But he not only re-enlisted, but he changed career fields from going
Oh,
to the flight to being a personnel specialist database administrator.
okay.
So that's his first job in IT.
Oh, wow. Okay.
While I was still pregnant, and then thank God the school ended and he got back before I had Connor.
Oh,
Yep. And then 6 weeks after Connor was born, they shipped us to South Dakota. That was an adventure. So after 3 years, then he separated.
okay.
He got out of the military. So he did a total of like 10 years. I did a total of 5. And then he
Okay.
moved back home to the East Coast.
Okay. So you mentioned before about starting at Toby Hanna Army Depot. So
And let's,
how did we meet? I'll let you go into that a little bit.
okay. So they have like an in-processing class that doesn't happen real. I mean, they in process you together. Whoever started, there was like 8 of us, I think, started the same day, maybe less, but they kind of in process you in so you can get your security badges and things that
Right.
you're gonna. It's not an easy process, I have to say, if you remember, but it was like the 8 of us or whatever kind of went through that whole first day together until they send you out into wherever you're going to be working.
Right.
And then they bring you back together. And I can't remember how soon after that they brought us back together to do like a 3-day in processing class.
Mm-hmm.
Something, maybe it was a week long at the time.
I think it was a
remember.
week. I remember. Yeah, I think it's about a week. Yeah.
5 days. So at that point, they really get into this is what Toby Hanna's about. This
Mm-hmm.
are financial areas or the security areas, and they kind of go into what the mission is for Toby Hanna.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, and so Tina and I sat right next to each other from the first day on. I think we might have been, and I oftentimes try to remember how this came to be because this was 2012. So like 10 years ago or more.
Actually, I
But
think it was 2009.
oh shoot, you're right. No, it's 2008.
2008, 2009. I don't know.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, over 10 years ago now, but yeah, it was 2008. I am so sorry I screwed that up.
Oh.
Okay. We're in this class and when we were first in processing, they were going around the room like, who are you? What is your rank? Who are you? What is your rank? And I remember, I think Tina and I both started as a 9 or a
Yeah.
9 or something.
Yep.
And everybody was like, oh my God, you're starting as a 9. And I was like, yeah, so. I guess after we've been there a while, it was like really a shock to bring somebody brand new into Tobyhanna at that rank. Because even like one of the neighbors that I had that worked for Social Security Administration later on said, well, I had to start as like GS4 or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, well, we had education, you know, and experience and I,
Military, a lot of things. Yeah, a lot of things led to that. And it's interesting. I mean, I respect anybody that started at 2, 4, whatever it is. I mean, it's great to be able to have that, but I didn't realize how big of a thing it was. I was going, oh, okay. I mean, I was extremely grateful, but I didn't know that it, yeah, like you found out too.
and I didn't mean for it to come out like disrespectful to anybody, you know,
Right.
because we all had to start at the bottom somewhere. But I think Tina and I bonded for that reason, for
Oh,
other
okay.
reasons. But that might have been kind of like a bond also for us to
Right.
say that we were in those places and neither one of us knew a single person from the base. And come
Correct.
to find out in the depot world, it is mostly like my uncle, my brother, my dad, you know, my whatever had worked there, and that's how you got in.
And
But
I think it started shifting. I think a lot of times it started like that, and then they start opening up to more military. They start opening up to um, different skill sets. And it's a small location, so I have seen where they have done a better job at turning that around. And there were more new faces coming in, more people organically getting the job. And I think as the system changed to using USA jobs compared to something locally, then that broadened the scope, and I was glad to be part of that insertion. That was good.
yeah, so I think they were doing a lot of good work and where they had a massive amount of workload and there
Mhm.
were a lot of people hired during that 2008, 2009 timeframe.
Right.
Yeah, I was very grateful to have that job. It was you know, even as a GS9, a very well-paying job for that area.
Mhm.
Uh, and then, so we sat through, we started in processing together. We started going to this class and talking to each other. And in one of the classes, they were trying to get people to bond and talk to each other, not just sit there in class and be
Right.
told what's going on. And one of the exercises was, oh my God, you're gonna have to correct me if I get this wrong, but it was
I think we had
which
to share a material. You had to share a piece of clothing with the person next to you or something.
share something, and it could have been anything, like share something with each other. Um, and we shared we swapped our shirts out or something,
Yeah,
didn't
like an
we?
outer sweater or a shell or something. But yeah, we and did we put it on backwards or did we put it on frontwards? I can't remember, but we had to, and it was like, okay, hi, I just met you. I hope you don't have lice. I mean, we've been talking a little bit, but now we're wearing each other's clothing. Hi.
And that was so funny. It was like, and then other people had to guess what we switched or something. I can't even
Yes.
remember what it came to be, but yep. So that's where we started our friendship from that class and the
Yes.
bonding experience.
And I think it's been a good friendship. It has. So, what are some things you remember about our friendship and being in Pennsylvania together?
Oh, so being that neither one of us had grown up there,
Okay.
I think it is kind of like at times a harsh environment. You know,
Okay.
they get a lot of snow, they get a lot of cold.
hmm
Uh, yeah, and neither one of us grew up there. But I visited the Poconos area as a child, all throughout my childhood, as my family owned a cabin there, hunting cabin. And then we ended up doing some, because I grew up outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs of New Jersey, and it was a city, basically.
Okay.
Tina and I've also talked, she grew up in Chicago. You know, I grew up like basically right outside of Philly. And we're both city girls living
Yes.
in the mountains. And her husband was had kind of grown up in that
Yeah, Marcus from
area.
Bloomsburg. Yeah.
Right. But I don't know, just friendship wise, I've enjoyed having somebody like you to share intellectual conversations, you know, what's going on at the depot, that we were both, you know, our careers blossomed there at the depot. We were given opportunities and
Yeah.
accepted those opportunities very well. We've never competed for a job, which was great. We've oftentimes teased about that, like
I know. Yeah.
really competition for jobs, but yet we both blossomed there. We were given opportunities where we did well. Um, yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you
No,
think?
no, no. I remember just I remember I like the idea that we did not have, and nor do we now have the same career field.
Right.
So if there was something going on in your world, you could come over and vent or find me. I could come find you or go for a walk. I also remember our lunch crew. Um,
Yeah.
being together and everybody sort of had a different job. And
Right.
that lunch table almost was like reserved for us, like, like where are you at? Where are you going? Who's eating lunch here? Who has a tour and can't come or who's doing something? That lunch crew was a intricate part of everyday life, being there as it grew or different people took jobs or had different responsibilities or deployed. That was really fun. I like
Mhm.
having another tall friend at work because, tall girls rock. And having that is always interesting too. So that has been fun. I think we enjoy that. And then watching, because sometimes you're friends with people at work, and that's where it stays, and that's fine. Every relationship doesn't go beyond that. But I don't know if we went to the movies or no, we went to watch Jesse in New York. Oh my gosh. I
Did
think I think that was so then it was like, okay, my brother Jesse, who you guys have already heard from, was on the US American bobsled team. And Jennifer had seen pictures and we talked about it. And I think this was going to be our first excursion outside of work that we were doing something.
yeah.
And he was in New York. I can't remember exactly where, but it was more freezing than Pennsylvania where we were. And
Class.
Lake Placid. And we had um a timeshare scheduled with my children, Mark, Connor, Paul. We were all going up as a family. We were going to spend a weekend there. We had it like something out of the dream books. Well,
Yep.
I hosed up the dates. I got a phone call that, when are you coming up? Well,
Where
that's
are
the
you?
week after. And it was like, so when is it? And it was, I think that phone call was like on a Tuesday.
Yep.
And it was like we needed to leave that Thursday. And I called Jennifer and said, so about that thing. And I understand if you don't want to go, I'll just go by myself. But deep down inside, I was crying. I was like, she's gotta go. And so she goes and she says, okay, we go together. I'll let you take it from there, what you remember about that trip.
So I had never been to that area of New York State. I don't think you ever had either.
Nope.
So the Pocono Mountains, they aren't as high and crazy as these mountains at Lake Placid. There's a reason why the Olympics were held there. Um, and in January or whenever, February or January timeframe that we went, the weather was crazy. Now, Tina drove her car, and I remember thinking, I am so glad I am not. Maybe we took turns at some point, but at some point, I'm like, I'm not driving somebody's car on these crazy, snowy roads. And then we got there safely, but it took us a while. And huge, beautiful mountains. I mean, it was
Hmm.
a beautiful little town. I had heard of people going to Lake Placid, but I had never been there. and it was a gorgeous hotel. We got lucky. We had 2 beds in a hotel, like a lake that was
Yes.
obviously frozen over, and people were doing like sleigh rides on with the sleigh dogs, whatever
Oh
they were,
yeah, yeah.
the lake right outside our rooms.
Hmm.
Beautiful and nice little town. So we got to visit Jesse at the Olympic Center that he was
Yes.
staying and got pictures of ourselves sitting in a bobsled, one of the
Yes.
Olympic bobsleds. It was so cool, but bitter, bitter cold and windy but we're so excited to go see him race and to be that close to an Olympic race
Hmm.
practice. I mean, it was a gorgeous run, like how they do the run, where you're able to get close.
Yes.
Took some videos before my phone literally froze.
Yes. I remember you kept going, it's not working. And I'm like, oh no, it's frozen.
Went on with my, we were so bundled up. We looked like, we were in Antarctica and we were even all the layers of clothes. We were
Yes.
still surprised we didn't get like frostbite.
Frostbite on our face. Yeah.
But it was an amazing time. I mean, we were there like at the crack of dawn to see the race start all the way up to like almost sunset, and then we
Yeah.
go find somewhere to eat and try to meet up with Jesse and his friend, and it was a gorgeous little town, like a little
Yes.
chateau type town, like you would
It
think in
was.
Switzerland or something.
It was.
Uh,
Do you
but it
remember
was
when we were
so much.
driving? We had got to a point, I think we were going to switch drivers, and we opened the door. And if it wasn't for the railing, do you remember that part? It was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I think we're going to die out here. This is where it's going to all end. I was like, I don't even like my brother that much. I was like,
And it was blizzarding. I
yeah,
mean, it was,
because you could hardly see with the windshield wipers. It was
yeah.
horrible. Yes. And we said, okay, we're not switching drivers. And when we
Well,
drove back that way in the daytime, I was even like more frightened for us. I was like, oh my gosh.
right.
That was that part. I was like, because I mean, even though the windshield wipers going, you could hardly still like see. You could, and it was just like, what are we doing? It's like we had gone too far that we couldn't turn back,
Oh,
and just freaking out trying to get there. I was so glad when we got to that hotel. Do you remember the big bear in the foyer? We took pictures with the big bear.
I still have that picture
Me
of
too.
the big bear, and
Yeah.
that was a big bear. Holy smokes.
Yes. So over the years, we have literally been living life together. I
Yeah.
know the title of this conversation, but what have been some big losses or challenges for you in life? It may be grief relating to someone passing, or maybe life experience that you want to share.
I think the most emotional one was your loss. I've been lucky over the years. I mean, I lost my grandparents when I was young. We weren't exactly close. I didn't have any friends that were lost. The closest I came was my niece who had leukemia
Hmm.
and battled that for a year before she went in remission, and that came close. But
I know
just
your
grief
uncle.
and my uncle. Yeah, so my uncle Frank was also a loss, unfortunately, dementia that he battled for years. Yeah, so that was somewhat recent, but after Mark's passing. So the grief that I felt for you and Mark at Mark's passing was probably the most emotional.
Oh, okay.
So Uncle Frank.
I didn't know that. Do you recall how you found out about what was going on with Mark and how that was for you?
Yes, you want me to?
Oh gosh, yes. Hmm.
Okay.
No,
All
this
right, I'm
and this is a
I keep thinking
conversation, and I know this is but this is a conversation because there's going to be someone's friend that has been through this experience, and they will be able to go, okay, they can take from your experience and make that their own and what they need to do. And that's why I told you to have your tissue because
I do
this
have to.
this is real talk. So no, yeah, please do.
Yeah, I know we've talked since, but not the most impactful part of this is that when you called me, because I knew you were going to see him in Delaware, because we talked about, I had lived in Delaware for like 4 years
Oh,
before
yeah.
coming to, and we had talked about where to stay and things like that, because it was, Mark at the time was living in Virginia and you were up
Right.
in Tobyhanna still, and about the middle part was that place in Delaware, which is close to where I lived for 4 years. So
Mm,
you had called me, and I knew you were going down to see him for the long weekend or something. And
let's just put it quickly. It was a lover's weekend. That's what we were going down. I ain't seen him in a while. And we was going to spend time with each other.
I'm not sure how I should share here, but it had
I
been a
was
while.
married to him. I'm good.
Okay. So literally when I got the call from you, I was like, what the heck are you calling me on your special vacation?
Your lover's weekend. Why are you calling me?
And all I heard was you sobbing. Between the sobs, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. And I I was literally laughing at first when you called, like, what are you doing calling me? You should be busy doing something else. And I thought you were laughing at first,
Mm,
and it took a minute or so for me to realize that you were sobbing
okay.
and telling me that he was dead. And I literally fell down on my bed. Like, I remember standing by the window looking out, like, what are you doing, crazy lady? And then I fell down.
Hmm.
It, like I couldn't comprehend it. And all I could ask, like, where are you? Like, do you need me to come there? That was my first thought. Like,
Right.
watching the sun setting, you telling me he's dead, and I couldn't even like imagine how I was going to get to you, to do something to help you, or
Right.
to get to the hospital, or like I couldn't even ask the questions that were slamming around in my brain because they were coming at me too quick to, what can I do?
Right.
What do you need? And I think at that point you weren't even sure. I don't even sure where you were calling me from the room or calling me from the
Mm,
hospital. And you said, I'll have to call you back or something. And I'm not even sure if I heard that or just felt that.
right.
And then, so I waited, I started getting dressed, like, let's pack a bag. Paul's like, pump the brakes, what's going on? And I'm like, he's dead. She's calling me, he's dead. I have to find out where she is he's like, find out where she is before you take off. And like, he's putting the logical in my
Right.
brain to say, let's find out first before you go off. Now at this point, it's dark at night and we don't know where we're going, right? Like,
Right.
what's going on? So it took a little while for you to call me back or for me to get a hold of you for obvious reasons. And I think at that point you might have been in the hospital.
Okay.
So I think it might have been like an hour or two later. And at that point, Paul's like, we're not driving anywhere till we'll get up at the crack of dawn and go down, find out where she's at. So
Hmm.
that's what we ended up doing. But I didn't sleep a wink that night. I think I went over to my sister's and just sobbed with her because I couldn't be there with you.
Hmm.
So it was unlike anything. Like, I've had a bunch of things happen, surgeries, things that were difficult. Nothing compared to that. Like, my heart broke for you. I guess that's the best way I could put it. And try to get all the tears out the night before I saw you first thing in the morning.
Hmm.
I know we met up that morning. I can't even remember wherever it was you told me to be, that's where we were. And I believe we were going to take you home because you had somebody else to drive your car.
Yes.
You could be in our
No,
car.
you and Paul drove down. You
Okay.
drove my Subaru back. Paul drove your car back. And then a
Okay.
friend drove Mark's vehicle back to Pennsylvania.
That's what it was. Okay.
I think you met us for breakfast because there was where we stayed, there was a golf course. I don't know if you met us for breakfast there or we as soon finished there. Okay. So you did have breakfast with everybody that was there with me. Do you remember seeing me or what that looked like or your thoughts? But and it's important for people to just understand that void, that what it looks like. It's okay.
I remember walking in and hugging you and just crying again, my eyes out with you, and trying to put myself in your shoes to know what to say. And there's nothing that could compare, because I know the love and the life that you had
Yes.
was going to be completely different from then on. And all I had to do was look at you and know that you're probably the strongest person I know, yet your heart had to have been in pieces at that point. To just put myself in your place, I started falling apart, like to even not even know what to say or think, but to hold you in silence and know that no matter what you asked me, I would have done for you, because of the loss and the tragedy that you just went through. Somebody so young, and you and Mark so vibrant together, that yin and the yang that you had together, that was now in half. And to think of you without him, like I knew you at work, I knew you as a person, yet it was always like Paul and I, like
Yes.
you and Art, and how the hell do you pick that up just less than 12 hours later to
Yes.
see you and know that there will never be you and Mark together again, and how to not even be able to comprehend how you felt, not even to try to put myself in your place. There's no comprehension. There's just, what can I do for you? What can I just sit here in silence with you? And I think a lot of that time together after that was just, I'm here for whatever you need. I'll listen to whatever you say, however you feel, just bring it, and I got you. And even if it's just sitting quiet and giving you a hug or hold your hand or go for a walk in silence at some point, whatever you need, I'm here. And yet I wanted to fix it. There's no fix. So I'm a fixer in most of my friendships and my sisters and things like that. Just tell me what I can do and I'll help you fix it. There's no fixing. There's no bringing Mark back. There's no conversation you can have with them after that. And I know that it's terrible.
It is. And I appreciate you guys literally did do any and everything I have ever needed. And to be in a space where sometimes people say, I'll do whatever you need, and they say it haphazardly. The people that have said that to me have meant that intentionally. I remember, was it the air conditioner needed to, there was the house was, so Mark was a bona fide electrician. So he had gone to International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers 5-year program. That man could build a whole house if he had anything. So I was not, and to this day, I'm not the fix it girl. So it was like, okay, well, this needs to be done. Mark will do that. This needs to happen. Mark would do that. And it got to a point I started making, I was just like, you know what? You need to do stuff too, like your dad, so you can be like Mr. Fix It. And the house we had in Pennsylvania did not have central air. and summer was coming, and I am strong, I think, because the confidence equates to strength. But there are a lot of things I cannot do, and Mark's passing showed up to reality of what I cannot do and my limitations. And even if I could, in that fog of my husband's death, I could not think straight. And I needed to not be miserable and hot. And I remember you and Paul coming over and us getting these two AC units and going, Mark made this look so easy. He put these in, and then it was like, poof, the house was cooler. How does this work? We were going to the hardware store. We were trying to get all this stuff. And I said it to say there are just everyday little nuanced things that when you have to do that in the absence of your spouse, it is so overwhelming. And it makes you so mad. And it's like, I don't want to do this myself. I didn't set this up to do it this way. And to have friends. And then also sometimes when you're the widow or the widower, you may not feel comfortable reaching out to your friends that are still couples because you're the oddball. You're the one that doesn't fit in, and you're not sure if people don't want you around anymore, or if they said they would help you, do they really mean it? Are they really, really going to help you when things are 2 o'clock in the morning or something is going on that you can't do yourself? And you guys showed up every time. You showed up every time. I remember, do you remember going to the gun range?
Yes. Yeah, my husband thought that would be a good idea.
Us, Mark and I did shoot. Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm.
Yep. The gun range was one of them. I completely forgot about that one.
I have the
I
picture
remember
with us in the circle, the one we made. Yep.
movie watchers. We like to go
Yes.
to the movie. We bought some nice, funny shoes when we went to the mall that one time.
Yes. We have shirts alike, the pictures.
Out of my comfort zone, and I bought some sexy, strappy sandal things for my husband.
You're welcome, Paul. I'm just saying.
But yeah, so there was a lot of that. What do you need? I remember cleaning your garage and doing some things around your house. The garage with the
Let's talk about that garage.
you
So
should.
I love my husband, but he was quite the collector of things. To the point that we had a 2-car garage that was full of collector of things. So
Yes.
now both kids have gone to the military. Mark has passed. And I live in Pennsylvania, where if it snows 2 feet of snow, the only question is, why are you late to work? It's not like you're not coming in. It's like, you better figure that out.
Right.
And there was nobody to clean off the car. And then look at this stuffed garage. So Jennifer, another girlfriend, Georgette, and my sister Yolanda comes up from Virginia, and we roll up our sleeves and we are super women and we're going to clean the garage. And then we saw a mouse.
That dumpster was a lifesaver.
There were guys from church. The dumpster was out there and we were moving stuff, but we saw the mouse. Remember the mouse?
Oh,
and
yeah.
The three of us, we was like, oh no, burn it all. I don't care. But Jennifer over here, go ahead, Jennifer, about yourself and the mouse. Mm-hmm. She says, it's just a mouse. And they were dead. Let me be clear. The mice were dead, but they were still there. Yeah. Jennifer says, oh, you wimps. She gets the broom and the dustpan. She gets them, puts them all, takes them to the edge of the property line and scoops them away. And we're over there. And then she became our shero. She was the shero of the day. We continue to move. We get everything out of the garage. My sister and I get some bikes and we ride circles in the garage. I get a garage door opener installed. And I remember parking that car in the garage for the first time and just telling Mark, I did it. I am doing this. I am here. I am figuring this out. And then I was mad at him for keeping that garage so dirty that I could have been parking in there before. But I was so glad that I didn't have to deal with the rain and the snow. I could come in from the house and get into the garage and hit the button and drive out. And I remember just thinking it was a small thing, but it was such a big thing to be able to just say, I'm doing it. I'm taking this as it comes, step by step. And there are some people that are here helping me with each step of this along the way. And there are some things that I have to figure out on my own. But it is a process. It is a process.
And it was from my eyes difficult to ask you for every single box we opened.
Oh,
There might be something personal. There was something from Mark's childhood that he kept. It was every box. You didn't know what was going to be in there. They weren't really, some of them were labeled and it was obvious. Other things it was like, oh my God. And I felt like I had to ask you what was going to happen with the box, and you had to make that decision over and over, and how emotional that some of
yes.
that stuff, just not the decision on what to do, or like, am I throwing that out? It was something important to Mark to keep, and God, that had to have been heart wrenching for you.
It was. And I think we got to a point because it was a big house
Yeah.
and there were a lot of things in there. So we got to the point of absolutely keep, think about, and just if I could mentally make those decisions. And that became easier than trying to make the entire decision. Like some things is like, I don't even know why we have that. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Because when I first started looking, I would open a box and then I would start looking at the contents. And then next thing you know, I'm going back down memory lane. You can't pull me up, and like a half an hour is passing. You and your locker are going, okay, what do we do? I can see, but I can see out of the peripheral, but I couldn't pull myself out of this. I was like, okay. When I got to a box, I was like, all right, we do not have the bandwidth to do that. So we need to figure out a better one. I think Yolanda may have figured out watching something about hoarders and other stuff that you start making different piles, and then from those piles, you can slim down. And then that made the process fluid. We were able to start doing here, there, and that. But it was um, because we have so many memories we keep and do. But it was good to have friends with me because I don't think I would have ever gotten through going through all those boxes by myself.
No, and it would have taken you so much longer. And I know that just dragging those emotions through it alone, I can't even imagine. So as much as we could have those fun times, like, oh my God, it's a mouse. And I'm like, okay, I see this all the time at my house because my cat kills the mouse and everything else. So
And
to
you
me,
guys
it
live
was
out in the woods and everything. Ooh.
so funny about it. I will never forget that.
Nor will I, nor probably will Georgette or Yolanda. It was like, I think it was Jennifer the Mouse Slayer. We had like a whole name for you. Yes, it was Jennifer the Mouse Slayer. But it was like, yeah, to do that, I'm grateful for people to do that with me because I mean, there are some people that will do that independently. I am obviously a very sociable and engaging person. We are all hardwired different. But for the person that chooses to do that on your own, when it gets too heavy, give yourself grace to pause in that process. Or maybe make that an opportunity to call a friend to say, you said you could help me do anything. What I need is just some company in this process. And that you don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to be alone. Those things are helpful to have somebody else there with you in doing it. Those were, I remember some, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
Also remembering as we were talking about some conversations we had in your living room when you were going through radiation, when
Oh,
your breast cancer. So I know that with Mark gone and you alone there, it was difficult to, have somebody drive you somewhere because your arm was swollen and you were going through things and in pain, or just needing somebody to sit there with you, maybe in silence, or maybe just what's on your mind, Tina.
right.
And so many times to be a good friend and can't know
100% what your friend is going through, I think it's important to just listen.
Mm,
And even if it's not something you can fix, but you can listen to them and have them feel like they're heard and 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 understood by somebody to explain what they're going through and their emotions.
mm.
Be able to listen. Sometimes it's just sitting in silence, and even if all they want to do is just sit with somebody and not be alone, that's important too.
That is. And I appreciate you saying that, because that sitting in silence and letting that person that's grieving talk, because you, even though your desire is to fix it, you can't. There are no words that are consolable. And they could be, and I know for myself, in a loop of saying the same thing over and over. Just like you talked about it being a shock when you heard and how you collapsed on the bed, my mind was trying to reconcile the reality of this by repeating the narrative over and over, with the hopes of it locking in and saying, like, this is what really happened. Like, we went away for a lover's weekend and it twisted to life doing what life does, and trying to just put those pieces together. For me, Audible and journaling and therapy and a lot of other, the workout grind and doing things to force myself into it, to come to terms with the reality of it. And it took time for me. It took my hood of people being there, and sometimes in silence, to let me just replay that narrative and not be alone. That is very important. That is very important. I want to circle back to something. So you drove me home. Do you remember that part? Like, what happened, like driving me home, or you leaving your thoughts, or I think I remember, yeah, what do you recall from that?
We each had our mission, right? Like you were saying, Paul was driving, the other person was driving somebody else's car. I was driving your car, and I believe you were in the car with me.
Yes.
So I said, when we started up, what do you need? And you said you need quiet, you need silence. And you set the passenger seat back. I drove you home, and maybe we said one or two things, and that was it. You were visually upset, crying a couple times, maybe resting a little bit. But I tried not to disturb you that entire drive home. And it was like, it was a 4.5 hour drive home.
And I'm a
That,
talker, so that is like,
yeah,
whoa, okay.
that's saying a lot. And I
Yeah.
know no matter, even if you needed me to, I would have pulled off the side of the road. I would have gotten you a hand, something to eat, a milkshake, whatever, coffee. But you didn't hardly say a word the whole time.
Mm,
Being a good friend, that's where I came to that conclusion after that drive, that it is okay to just be silent for them.
okay.
Where usually, like you said, you're the one talking, I'm listening, we're doing things, we're very active friendship that way, but other times I'm a quiet person by nature, so I'm okay with, as long as you are okay with being quiet, right? Like if you needed to talk, talk. If you want to be quiet, we'll be quiet. It was allowing you to tell me what you needed. And not me trying to guess. And
Right.
because I think that's worse. And that's just maybe how I'm built, but it's worse than just, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you, to keep almost nagging you.
Right.
And it might be just better to say, if that's what you want, I gotcha. I can do whatever you need. And I think that's part of that friendship that we built, that we knew whatever you needed and I could do it, I would.
Thank you.
Because imagine the agony that you were going
I remember saying, yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna be here. I didn't want to talk. And I was thinking, I remember food not being important for a long time. I was just so numb, emotionally, physically, just drained. It had been a long night, thinking of everything that happened. Mark died that Saturday. you picked me up Sunday, and it was 3 or 4 hours, and I remember being awake, sleeping, but just not wanting to deal with life. There was nothing that mattered. There was nothing of any importance. There was nothing at all. I remember getting to the house, and I think you wanting to come in with me, and I think I was very adamant about no. And I saw you struggling to leave me in the house by myself, or what do you recall from that, or do
I can't remember if your kids were there.
nope, there was nobody at the house.
There was nobody at the house. So I think that's why I thought to myself as a mom, that if your kids were there, it's okay to leave you with them. But I struggled with leaving you totally alone. As alone as you could be, right?
And I realized I was like, and I felt bad because I was afraid about being rude. I was like, she just drove 4 hours. I don't think we talked much.
And the aloneness for you.
No, but I knew, and so I don't think I ever told you, I'm not sure if I told you this part, but there was nobody in the house. And I cried in the hospital. I was there with Mark's body and was belligerent until Catherine came finally. But when I got home, the reality that he would never come through that door again, it hit me so hard. And I didn't want to hold back how I felt in anyone's presence. No sooner than I closed the door, I fell on the floor in the front room and wailed and cried and just released the reality that he was gone from that house, from this situation. And it was the beginning of me trying to figure this out as Tina, absent of him, because I knew family was coming. I knew after that moment, the house would be, and I was welcoming the fullness of the house and the friends and my kids being there. There was so much going on. My sisters were working to get Alexander released from the military, what needed to happen, all those different things. Catherine had not left for the military yet, but she was still being brought back. And I needed that moment to fall apart because after then I was going to have to be thinking. I was going to have to be part of making decisions. And I needed time to not care in my own space and just take the reality of it in. So that's why I couldn't hold myself together for not nan one more minute. I needed to be fully just to pieces. And I think you guys called like as soon as you got home to make sure that I was okay. And at that point, heck, my brother may have been there because he came very quickly, Jesse did. And that was the reason for that.
So I think at that point, you needed to do whatever it is that you needed to do for you.
So now we've had his service. And what does that look like being my friend after that? Now life is continued to life and dealing with me in that process past the immediate portion of that.
So yeah, fast forward to the past the service, to the realization of what is Tina going to do forward? Do
Yes.
you go back to work? I think you took some time off from work
Yep.
after that. You had to decide what was going to be the future for you, and make those hard planning decisions as far as going back to work and figuring out Tina without Mark. And I just remember some long conversations with you, like, what can you handle today? What do you need? Like, what does that look like? And I think you were also trying to decide, do I go back to work or not? What does that look like? And do you need time to process longer and or go in a different direction? Because this whole time
I don't know if he's covered this already, but you were looking, Mark was down there for a job and you kept applying like
Yes.
100 jobs
Oh my gosh.
and happening down there. And it was like, oh my God, does Mark come back, before he left, because nothing was happening for you down
Right.
there. And that struggle of being apart that whole time, and then for this to happen, now it's like, holy crap, what do I do? Do I go back to my job here?
Yes.
Because of him not being permanent and you not being down there at that point. And it was long conversations about what you are going to do. I remember those kind of conversations of, no kidding, what do you need? What do you need to do it for you at that
And
time?
that's
Yeah.
good. I remember the idea about what do you need today.
Yeah.
I thank you for bringing that up, because your brain is in such a fog trying to take in the reality of what's happened, that beyond this day may be too much to fathom in a conversation. I remember people asking me, what do I need? And my mind would go from the beginning and back. I could not bring it in. And I think I remember telling some of my friends, if you want to ask me something, just ask me for today. How am I doing at this moment? Because I get in a loop that my brain normally would be able to reconcile with, that I could not. So I appreciate those clues that say again.
Nobody better at logistics planning than Tina. So brain, her, like work brain, and she's always trying to help people at work or decide on planning. And between her and I, we can organize the hell out of something. But to literally say to Tina, what can I do today? Or what do you need in little bits and pieces of whatever was important at that time? And I think that time to heal and to decide what's next, even if it's just a small little in your mind brain, in your brain, just one little step, a little baby step, then what needs to happen for Tina today became important.
That's a good point. Thank you, Jennifer, because what I'm hearing is the person that you know them to be on a regular basis before this great loss, that person is impacted in such a way that if you're expecting the person they were before to show up, it's not happening. The capacity of that, and to be gentle with someone and to give them grace to realize this is not together. I may look like the same person that you knew, but inside it's mushy up there. And the mushiness is not running at the 100% capacity. Like, it was like very baby steps. I could not gone, there's no way I would have been able to function in my job, as demanding as it was, with the very small mental capacity that I had. And having that grace for people around me, not to make me feel less than, because this is what grief looks like. Because oftentimes we may have the ability to say, I'm sorry at the service, and then continue your life outside that very intimate interaction with that person grieving such a great loss. You were there front and center in that process, being there with me. And that is important, to be able to have that ability to just give somebody space and realize they are not the same.
And I think that's important for others to learn as things like this happen in life. Happened just to my father-in-law last year. And what my mother-in-law said was basically like, this is what I need from you right now. I may look like I'm holding it together. Like, she's like, take for example, I'm in a car accident and I get, bruised or broken or something on the outside. Then everybody's like, oh, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? But grief is, you feel that way on the inside, like you're broken on the inside and nobody can see it because you look fine on the outside or something. This is me, broken and bruised on the inside, even if you can't see it on the outside. And so when I think of how you have to be gentle with people, you can't demand that they are the same person because they're not going to be. Or
Right.
you can't demand or expect that they're going to be full-blown Tina at work the next day because it's just not going to happen.
No.
People, just because they can't see you like falling apart, it doesn't mean that you aren't.
Mm. How has it been supporting Paul's mom in her journey with this?
Logistically, it's been really hard here in Germany, even Paul in the Poconos versus, so his mom ended up moving in with his sister in New Jersey because Indiana was so far away that nobody logistically could help 10 hours away to help her. So I think taking that move and getting her closer to the sister and to us was the better of the move, even though a couple months later I moved to Germany.
Right.
So we reach out all the time, her and I, over text. Text is like a storybook to me all the time.
Nice.
But every experience is different, right? Every
Yes.
widow is different. I've tried to tell her through your experience that, go talk to a therapist, go, explain what's going on and share your story with somebody that isn't even a group kind of therapy, not a comfortable one-on-one, but
She's
she
not
has
there yet.
not there yet. Maybe she may not be there yet. She's from a different also generation than us. And in that they don't go to therapy. They don't practice, like go to a church then. There's so many offerings that people do, but she has to decide that.
Right. You're right. Everybody does.
And different, and
Yes.
you can't force that box sometimes, that person into a box where that it might help. You hope you could get help, and so that's been a struggle, I guess you could say. Because again,
I
I
can
want to
see
fix
that.
it. I know I can't fix it.
Right.
So I can offer some things, and some people you just have to offer and then move on if they don't take it.
Right.
But so that's been a bit of a struggle for me, and I know Paul too, because it's his mom, and
Right.
his dad struggled for 4 years with cancer. It's not an easy journey, and she had to move.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Weeks she was out of her house, and so that was difficult too, to leave the house you and Mark shared for a long time.
Right. It is interesting how it can look the same from the outside, but the way we go through our grief, our journey is unique to those individuals, whether it's of our age, our ethnicity, being the man or the woman. Those parts really play out some way as far as what our journey looks like. And I'm glad that she has you and Paul to be with her, how her journey unpacks, and her daughter being willing, like my mom moving in with my sister, being able to do that. Having that community becomes very critical sometimes to doing that. And sometimes you don't naturally have a community that may be blood, but your community may come in the form of friends or other people that can help you, or a church or a mosque or a community center where people are connecting to make sure that you're not alone. I know this has been an extremely emotional conversation, Jennifer. I appreciate you from not shying away from it. I know when I first asked you, like, you want me to do what? But you did. Anything in your mind, closing comments or thoughts or experiences you want to share?
I think with the not just the amount of time, but the things that has happened to us since we've been friends, I think you're a beautiful, strong, amazing person. And thank you for letting me share my story with you and sharing your story with me.
Thank you. So we're talking about just different thoughts. And I know my family is someone you know from Jesse. How does that relate to like you being my friend and still me having with my family, my
So what I knew, not just you being a beautiful, strong, amazing person and totally strong and be able to get through anything, not that this was anything, but that grief is a long drawn, personally drawn process. But the fact that I had the privilege to be your friend and to try to support you through this, knowing at the same time that your family is such a strong part of you and that literally your family would do anything for you, at the same time having that strength and being able to just be one sliver of a friend to you on top of that is what I hoped, right? Like, so given that your entire family and your siblings are so strong and amazing like you are, and then you were able to allow me to be personally strong for you too, was a privilege for me. Even though we're not related, even though we came from different sides of the world, just being a part of that and you allowing me to be a part of that was a privilege too.
I can see that. Thank you. Because sometimes friendships are a little more removed and we're not able to be as close or connected, but there have been no barriers. This has been the raw, open, it is what it is, good or bad, sometimes get on nerves, but that authentic, I guess, is the word that is used more now to really be there with somebody. And I can say that I am extremely grateful. The hardest part of leaving Pennsylvania was my friends, leaving you and the other ladies and people, but I couldn't do it anymore. It was too hard. And making that choice to move to Virginia was extremely good, but it came with a choice of leaving things, I guess, that physical connection, but the friendship hasn't changed. When I come to Germany, it's gonna be like Paul and Connor, get out the way. Like we were just there. I am grateful to have friendships in this day of technology that we're not waiting for a letter to have to come or stuff like that, that the bond and friendship can remain. I am extremely grateful for that. Thank you for
Yeah,
being my friend, Jennifer.
for your genuine friendship too. Thank
I
you.
love you.
Love you too. Thank you.
Oh, I am just catching my breath. This conversation with Jennifer was amazing. And Jennifer is amazing. She is beautiful inside and out. She literally made time to have a conversation with us as she's all the way in Germany. I love how she talked about our friendship from the beginning, how it evolved over time, and the impact my husband's death had in her life, and how she was able to leverage that to also be there and assist in her mother in law. I know that I have good friends, but these conversations have just revealed things to me that I didn't even know my friends sacrificed to be there in the gap for me. I'm extremely grateful. I am sorry for the person that you have lost that has driven you to this conversation, but I'm glad that you're a part of my hood. And I'm glad that you know that you are not alone and that we are here. And this is a journey that we are experiencing together. You take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.